What's cracking, people? Angelic Mayhem here. So, I am going to talk to you today about what happened at E3. It's actually quite simple. There were 4 major presentations, and E3 really opens tomorrow, so it was just about these 4 presentations from 4 different companies: Microsoft, Electronic Arts, Ubisoft, and Sony, in that order. Now, Electronic Arts and Ubisoft, they just were showing games. Electronic Arts is very excited because they own Battlefield and Battlefront now. So, not like that's going to become confusing or anything. And Ubisoft was very excited because they were promoting the same games that we've been watching on YouTube for months and months and months. Watch Dogs, Assassin's Creed, Raving Rabbids, and they did announce a new game in the Pets series. But let's get past all that. What was, without question, the most important and mind-numbing thing that I have seen in the video game market in the past decade was what went down today between Xbox and PlayStation. All right. Microsoft went first. All right. In fact, they were the first one on the day. They premiered at 11 a.m. Pacific time, which was 1 in the afternoon my time. And all they did was showcase games. Okay. Which is actually ironic because after the first press conference that they had, people were like, you didn't show any games. Then they spent weeks telling us about all the crappy things that Xbox Live and Xbox One are going to do for us. And now all we want to hear are about the policies, and they didn't say anything about that. Okay? They just talked about games and then they left the stage. Which is crazy because earlier they had said that they're not going to do any press conferences. So that's it. This is what we got, was a bunch of games, and they're not talking at all about the console or any of the ridiculous DRM stuff or about used games or anything. They're not talking about any of it. And then Sony ended the day by crushing the XBONE like a steamroller. I have never seen a more perfect, nuanced, slick, and well thought out presentation. This thing was stunning. All right. They came out, and the first thing they did was they showed the box. All right, because they hadn't actually done that yet. So they wanted to actually, show you the physical piece of hardware. And then they brought out the guy who actually designed the hardware, and he took a bow. Then they sent that off, and then they did a couple games, and they also talked about the PlayStation Vita and the PlayStation 3, which was all, normal stuff you would expect. Then they got into the actual Sony network where, you either have it for free or they have PlayStation Plus. And with the PlayStation Plus, they announced that, the people who already have PlayStation Plus, when the new PlayStation comes out, the PlayStation 4, then your Xbox Plus will automatically, be accepted with that. So that was a big relief to everybody's mind. Then they got into a couple more games, and then they melted my brain right in front of me. What they did was they actually put up panels on the screen behind the dude who was talking, where they actually went blow by blow across all the things that we have been complaining about. And they just said, used games. Congratulations. When you buy a game, it's yours. Hand it to your friend. Let him go play it. Boom. I've never seen a company just openly attack another company like that before. And it was necessary. It was important to gamers. And they just owned it. They were like, we are not Microsoft, and we are not going to hit you with DRM, and we're not going to hit you with the used game thing. And they just went blow by blow, one thing after the other after the other. And the whole world just went insane. People were cheering and just clapping at the top of their lungs. It was just unbelievable, man. Microsoft did talk about some good things, all right? They're killing off Xbox points, which we already knew about. And instead, they're going to replace it with whatever your local currency is. Xbox actually started their conference by talking about the 360 and how it has a new design, which you can buy today if you're interested. And it looks very similar to the XBONE. So then they got into the XBONE and they started talking about all the different games. All right, so they talked about Metal Gear Solid and Dark Souls and Rise. They also got into Dead Rising 3, which is going to be apparently exclusive to Xbox One. They also talked about Smart Glass and Kinect and video editing and all that stuff. And they mentioned that if you have an Xbox One, you can actually broadcast on Twitch TV, which is not necessarily a good thing for those of us who check out Twitch TV from time to time. You're about to get a lot more people that you have to sift through who are just kids who think that it's awesome that they can, stream themselves online with mindless games of Call of Duty, I'm guessing. Now, they also announced that the cost of Xbox Live Gold will not be going up with the Xbox One. All right, so it will still be $60 per year. Huzzah. And then finally, Microsoft announced that the XBONE will be available for $499. All right, so that was the basic conference. All right. So during the course of their press conference, Sony also announced, in addition to many other games, The Order and Gran Turismo and a bunch of other stuff, they also announced Final Fantasy 15. So that was very exciting because that's Squeenix coming back from their financial troubles. And they had one last, at the very end of their games portion of their program, they had like one last trailer that they wanted to show off, and it was Kingdom Hearts 3. So for those of you who are looking forward to that, that's coming our way. And then the last thing that Sony did before they left the stage was drop an anvil on everyone's head by announcing that the PlayStation 4 was going to be $399 versus the XBONE, which was going to be $499. I can't imagine a more complete and thorough drubbing of an opponent. I've never seen anything like it. It was like a heavyweight going up against a kid. This day has just been amazing. If you look at this objectively, this was the turning point in the war, and it happened today, and everybody saw it happen, and it was just amazing. It was absolutely amazing. It completely blew my mind. I could not believe when they put up those cards, man. That was like one of the greatest things that I had ever seen. And it was just point by point. Everything that's been bugging us for the past month and a half, they just brought it up and was like, yep, not us, not us, not us. And Sony actually came out with a video today on YouTube, which is making fun of the whole situation where you can't trade games on Microsoft. And I actually included it on my homepage under the video game trailer section. It's the very first one. So if you want, you can take a look at that. It's only 22 seconds long, but it is hysterical. And so that came out too. I mean, really, I just am completely flabbergasted by Microsoft and their what would seem to be a gaffe. But really, to me, I mean, I can't imagine that all those people standing around couldn't see this coming. And so it makes me think that this was actually deliberate by Microsoft. I mean, it's all that I can think about. I feel like they wanted to get out of the console market or find a way to back out. I really do. And they were like, we can take the Xbox and drive it off, into this total other direction. And they just wanted to get away from games. That's the whole time I was watching the press conference. That's all I could think about. And really, that's what I think. I think that Microsoft wants to create a piece of hardware that replaces every other piece of hardware, which is what they wanted to do for software back in the day. They always want that. They want operating systems, which replace all the other operating systems. And they want software, which replaces all the other software. And, this was that same drumbeat, but applied to hardware, and it's just an unbelievable screw up. I can't even imagine where they're going to go from here. I saw nothing at that conference that made me think, oh man, I have to have an Xbox One. So I don't know. I don't know what to think, but I can tell you right now that as I sit here, I am no longer an Xbox guy. I'm all about this PlayStation 4. It just looks and feels better. It just seems respectful to gamers. And, I don't have this gigantic camera sitting there staring at me that has to be there. But I can't really say 100% that I am against the whole used game thing and Microsoft's stance on it, because really, at the end of the day, developers need to make money, and they don't make any money off of used games. So I'm not really offended by that. What I'm offended by, you have to check in every 24 hours. Microsoft is treating people as if they are worthless, as if they are hackers. They're treating them as if they're guilty, and then saying, you have to prove to me that you're not. And PlayStation is doing the opposite. But no. One, the bone, forget the bone. So those are my thoughts on day one of E3. I'm going to watch again tomorrow, and then I will try to update you on as many of the things as I can as we go along. Thank you for listening to this video, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, click the like button and subscribe to my channel for more content like this in the future. I'm Angelic Mayhem, and I'll see you next time.